What's up, you guys? Welcome back to Coffee Conversations. This is episode 3 of the Job series, but today we're going to be covering, is God punishing me? Is God punishing you? Have you ever thought to yourself, like, have you ever just had all these bad things happen, or maybe it's just one bad thing, and you've thought to yourself, is God punishing me? Like, is God upset with me? Did I do something wrong, or what did I do to cause this? A lot of times when something bad happens or something goes wrong, our first thought is, what did I do? Like, how could I have made this better? How did I mess up? Where did I mess up? What did I do wrong? And so sometimes those are our first thoughts when something happens to us. I can tell you that when my daughter was first diagnosed, because I was so careful with my pregnancy, I was so careful with breastfeeding, I made all of her baby food. But then when she was diagnosed, I was like, where did I mess up? What did I do wrong? What step didn't I take to prevent this? And so a lot of times, automatically, when something bad happens, we're thinking, how did this happen and who's to blame? And so today we're going to be tackling the question, is God punishing me? And was God punishing Job? If you haven't caught video 1 and 2, I highly encourage you to do that. And in this video, we are going to be covering Job chapter 13 to chapter 21. Let's just do a really quick recap. So Job begins off with the Bible telling us that Job was a blameless man. He was also very blessed, had 10 children, a wife, servants, all these animals, a home, and he was the richest man in the area that he lived in. Then Satan approaches God and is like, well, he's blameless because he's so blessed. Allow me to test him. And God does allow Satan to test Job. He then goes through 2 tests. The first test, he loses his children and all of his animals. In the second test, he loses his health. So now we find ourselves where Job's friends hear about all these tragedies and they try to console him. And now his friends are kind of going back and forth. And Job is saying that his friends are not really helping much. And so we find ourselves in chapter 13, where Job then tells his friends, you know what? I'm going to argue this case with God. He's like kind of fed up with his friends at this point. And he's like, I'm just going to take this to God, right? We read in chapter 13, verse 1, it says, Job is saying, he's telling his friends this. He's like, look, I have seen all this with my own eyes and heard it with my own ears. And now I understand. I know as much as you do. You are no better than I am. As for me, I would speak directly to the Almighty. I want to argue my case with God himself. In verse 4, he says, as for you, he's telling his friends, you smear me with lies. As physicians, you are worthless quacks. If only you could be silent, that's the wisest thing you could do. Listen to my charge and pay attention to my argument. So he's telling his friends quite literally to be quiet, right? He's saying, be quiet. You're not helping me. I know what you know. And they really just kind of were helping him with chapter 14 and chapter 15, and then chapter 16 and 17 and 18 and 19 and 20. And 21, Job and his friends are just going back and forth, kind of just throwing insults at each other back and forth. And a big thing to note about this conversation between Job and his friends is the way that they're depicting and describing God. So Job's friends are telling Job that pretty much that the reason that he's going through all this hardship is because God is punishing him because he deserves it. And then Job is depicting God in an inaccurate manner as well, because Job is saying God's against me. He can do whatever he wants with me. He's punishing me. He's describing God as if God wasn't for him, and that's the reason why that he's being punished. But he's like, I want to go to God and kind of prove my case to him that I should not be punished, that I'm blameless, that I'm innocent in all this. Why am I being punished? And, he's like, I want to know from God why I'm being punished. Why is he punishing me? And so that's where we come to the question, in our hardships and in what we go through, is God punishing us? Is God punishing you? Is that why, our children got the sickness? Is that why we lost the home? Is that why we lost the job? Is that why we got the health issues? Is it because God is punishing us? I want to refer back to Job answering that difficult question, if God is punishing me in all this hardship, that God was not punishing Job. God allows us to go through tests. It develops us. It brings us to new levels and to new insights and to new revelation that we wouldn't receive if we weren't going through those tests. I can tell you that from going through having a child with a critical chronic illness, that I am so much more empathetic to other families that are going through the same thing. The key point is that we need to trust God with our life. It's important that while we're going through hardship, that we continue to trust God, that we continue to know that God has good plans for us, and that everything that happens to us does not mean that God is punishing us. In fact, God has our protection in mind. He has us in mind. He loves us. He came on earth to die for us. But what God does do when we go through hardships is He works it out for our good. So He will use that to help develop us, to help strengthen us, to help put courage and boldness in us, to help bring us into our calling, to help us step up and to elevate. And also He will use all of that to use us as vessels to encourage other people that are going through the hardships that we are going through. If you are enduring hardship, it does not mean that God is punishing you. All right, you guys, we're going to end there on chapter 21. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments on whether you believe that God punishes His children, or what your thoughts are on God and punishment. I'd love to read that. So please share all of your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you guys again tomorrow. Mwah. Bye.